What's up, Internet? You're tuning in to episode 126 of the PotsCast. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friend, Mr. Steven Radford.
Hello.
Hello, Steve. I have been traversing the galaxy all week, but you know what? I'm glad to be back on good old solid Earth to do this podcast with you this week.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. You know, I've been adventuring in a shanty town, so it's nice to be back in my house.
Your mansion in the UK.
Yeah, my mansion. Back at Croft Manor,
Yeah. You know, I didn't realize that they added hue lights to Croft Manor. That's pretty cool. Nice upgrade.
They did, you know. It's an old building, so we've got to go careful with what we do to it, because, you know, it's a listed building. It's cherished by everyone.
Sure.
But, you know, we can add some coloured light bulbs in.
Yeah, that's good. It's not too bad. Not intrusive, right? Doesn't mess with the natural architecture. No. Anyway, welcome back to the PotsCast. Of course, we are LootPots.com's weekly gaming podcast where Steve and I get together and talk about all things going on in the world of video games. You know, this week we're going to be talking more about Mass Effect, more about Tomb Raider. We're going to talk a little bit about Steve's first impressions of Jason Schreier's new book, Press Reset. You can also hear us talk about pretty big news week, and we've got tons of questions in the MailPot this week as well. So if we want to get to it all, we're gonna have to just jump right into it. So of course, let me just, before we get into what we're playing, tell you where you can find us all around the web. You know, we are available wherever you get your podcasts every Monday morning. You know, give us the likes, give us the shares, give us the subscribes over on the YouTube channel if you want to keep up with what we're doing. If you want to get some more content from us, of course, you can head over to twitch.tv/LootPots, where every Thursday, except for this one, because we had to record the show this Thursday, Steve and I are there streaming a game for your viewing pleasure. Most recently, we've been playing some Super Mario Party with some of our streaming friends, some members of the community. It's been a blast. If you'd like to watch a stream and, you know, this Thursday you can't, go watch the archive of last week's stream. You know, it was a good one. And if you were there, watch it twice. You know, relive the memories. It was a good time. We'll be back next week with something. So if you want to see us play some more Super Mario Party or something else, let us know. And we'll play that this week. You can, of course, also head over to patreon.com/LootPots, where for just $1, you can get access to our patron-exclusive show, After Dark, where this week, Steve and I talked about all kinds of stuff. We talked about the road trip that is the reason that we didn't stream this week, that I'll be going on this weekend with my band. We talked about Eurovision, all kinds of good stuff. So go check it out. Just $1 helps us keep the lights and the mics rolling, and you get a little bit of extra LootPots in your feed every week. So go check it out. So, that's enough shilling for now. Let's jump into what we're playing. I, of course, am still knee-deep in Mass Effect.
Never heard of it.
You know, Steve? You know what, Steve? I'm going to go into our... I'm gonna pull our first question out of the MailPot. Pull our first message out of the MailPot this week. This one comes from Mr. Zaid Ida, who wrote in to me at pete@lootpots.com, just like you can if you want to be a part of our MailPot segment and get your questions or comments read on the air. And Zaid wrote in and said, "Hey guys, hope all is well with you. Just out of curiosity, I was wondering if Steve was able to pick up the Mass Effect Legendary Edition like he promised Pete." See, I got your pack, Pete. If yes, how are you enjoying it so far? If not, why do you like hurting Pete so much? Pete's a good guy. Hope you guys stay safe, and I hope you have a fun tour with LFTF, Pete. Thank you so much, Zaid. Oh, and then he said, warm regards, the LootPots #1 hype man, Zaidita, which is, I'd say, accurate. Thank you so much for writing in, Zaid. I will have a fun weekend. Thank you. And, yeah, so, Steve, my question to you is, why are you a bastard? We've been friends.
I'm so sorry.
We've been friends for literal years now. You promised me 2 weeks in a row you're going to go pick up Mass Effect. We're going to talk about it.
I told you I would not this week. You know I told you I wouldn't, because you said, don't you dare come back here with a long list of games after you're saying you're not playing Mass Effect.
Right, exactly. And you said you'd get it this week. And then you come into this episode with this immediate energy of, oh, what's Mass Effect? I'm going to troll you. Don't even, man. Don't even. You're already on thin ice with me about this Mass Effect situation.
I was going to pick it up, and it was like, do I get this? Do I get Persona 5 Royal? And, you know,
you hear
I decided
this,
in the end.
He's just trolling us.
in the end not to get either of them, and maybe I'll change my mind later. No, I'm gonna get Mass Effect next week. Don't worry, we'll be talking about Mass Effect when we record. As long as we record. Oh shit! When are we recording next week?
You have
Because
to.
I'm away next weekend, so it might not be next week.
We're gonna have to record the show early before you go away, and you better fucking get the game and play it before
But
then.
I don't know if I'm gonna be playing then. That's the thing, you know.
Well, that's interesting because on your list it says you played Tomb Raider and Red Press Reset this week, so you obviously had some time to play games. And
I
now
did
you're
have a little bit of time.
and now you're telling me you're not going to be on the show. Now, oh, I don't know if I can even be on the show. The week that I promised I'd get Mass Effect and come and talk about it.
I'll be on the show. We'll record early. I'll be on the show, you know, because we need to we need to discuss a few things. We need to figure out what Mass Effect is about, you know.
Yeah.
But I need time to play because you said I need to play through that first section, which is like 7 hours. Or
No,
something,
no,
right?
no. It's not. It's like the first 2 to 3 hours of the game.
Okay, well, I can maybe do that, but oh,
You're
all right.
killing me. You're killing me. Get it on Sunday.
Yeah, we should be. I should be able to. Yeah.
You got nothing going on Sunday. We don't have the show.
No, I might have plans now. Actually, I probably am going to be on the sofa all day Sunday.
Exactly.
I've been vaccinated, so
Post
that's
your-
something to do. I want to finish Tomb Raider. Let me finish Tomb Raider,
Steve,
please.
no, you
Let me
can't.
finish
No,
Tomb Raider.
dude, you already agreed.
No. If I fall off of Tomb Raider, yeah, because my plan was, I finished Tomb Raider over the weekend. I pick the game up like Monday, Tuesday. I play the game. We talk about it next Sunday. The plans, it was solid. But then what I didn't realize was we're probably not recording next weekend now because I'm away. And so, like, what do we do? So, I can't not finish Tomb Raider because if I do that, I'll fall off it and I won't come back. And I want to finish this series.
How far
And then
into it are
I've
you?
committed. I'm like 40% of the way through according to the screen.
So you're not getting Mass
It's
Effect this week.
finishable.
You're not getting Mass Effect this week.
I'm gonna get Mass Effect.
Okay. All right. Fine. Anyway, Steve. All right. Okay. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna be episode 127 is gonna be very interesting.
I'll just download the one from EA Play. We'll just play the old game, yeah. That's the one. That's the one to go for, right?
You son of a bitch.
Oh, it's easy to wind you lot up.
You're killing me. You're absolutely killing me. You'll buy 40 indie games, but you're like, I can't afford Mass Effect. Too rich for my blood.
Who wants to hear someone talking about playing, a game from 2007? No one wants to hear that.
When they can hear you talking about a game from 2014 instead.
Yeah, exactly. 7 years newer. It's actually even from 2012, so it's very close because it's originally a 360 game.
It's almost 10 years old, so that's fine.
Yeah.
You're the worst.
Why did it take so long for them to remaster Mass Effect?
I don't know. EA is ridiculous. They've been saying for years that they're like, we don't really want to do the remaster thing, and everyone's like, but why?
It's money. You
just
like
give me
that?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't understand. I really don't understand. But we got it now, and I'm really excited to talk about it, and you just refuse to engage with me.
And I have concerns that Dad's going to be playing Mass Effect 3 when I go over next weekend.
Great.
And so I'm going to see some of Mass Effect 3.
And you're just going to get it spoiled for you and then be like, I don't want to play it now. I saw 1 minute. I saw 1 minute of it out of context. The whole thing's ruined.
Look, I know I want to play Mass Effect. I just know how big of a time commitment it is to play 3 massive games like that.
You don't have to play all 3 of them directly in a row. Just get in there. Just get in there. And also,
it'll happen.
You could not do a lot of side quests and get through the first Mass Effect very quickly. If you do minimal side quests in that game, if you just do the plot centric side quests that will maximize your relationships with the companions and everything, you can get through that whole game in fucking under 20 hours probably.
Okay, that's doable. 20 hours. But then I'm assuming the second and third are bigger.
I mean, you could if you mainline them, they're probably similarly length between like 20 and 30 hours, but like the side quests are worth doing in those games more because they're better. Some of the side quests in Mass Effect 1 are really good, but there's a lot of like driving around in the tank, which most Mass Effect fans will agree is not the best thing, and that's why the Mako is not in second or third game.
Is it because the tank's hard to control?
Yeah, and it's also just not what you want to be doing. Like you want to be doing like the firefights as your characters, like with your squad, because like that's the stuff you're leveling up. So like having to like get in fights in the tank and stuff, it's just like, why am I doing this? Like I don't want to do this. This isn't what I signed up for. I want to talk people.
Usually I'm all for a tank. I'm usually all for like a vehicle and stuff.
It doesn't add anything, I don't think. Like to me, it's like the formula of a good like section of a Mass Effect game is like talk to somebody, run down some hallways and shoot some stuff. Talk to somebody, run down some more hallways and shoot some stuff. Talk to somebody. Like that's what you want to do. You want to keep it focused on the action and the dialogue because that's the good stuff.
Okay. I will check them out. I promise you. I will check them out. I promise you, P. I promise you, Zayd. I promise you, everyone else is listening who is interested to see how I like Mass Effect. I will absolutely check out Mass Effect.
Okay. I hope so.
It just might not be next week's show due to recording times, but I will pick up Mass Effect.
You son of a bitch.
And I've got to tell you, Pete, something's changed in me. I'm going all digital on this generation.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Quick resume.
It's a big deal.
It's like that alone. It's like you go to play a game. It's like quick resume. It's like, oh, I've got to get up to put the disc in. And that's the laziest fucking thing and the most first world problem that I've got to get up and find a disc and put it in the console. But to be able to snap between games is just...
It's a beautiful thing.
It's incredible. And I'm just going digital.
I'll tell you what. You won't miss it. Going digital, it's great. And the quick resume thing, I feel spoiled by it already. Because when I play on my PlayStation and I have to hop back in, I'm like, son of a bitch. I got to close the game and open the game again. What is this, the Stone Age?
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of PC players complaining as well. Like, that's such a good feature. And obviously Microsoft makes Windows. It's just like, come on, bring something like that over.
Yeah, I can't believe it's not a thing on PC, honestly. It's crazy. But I guess it's because your PC has to do other stuff. Whereas your Xbox doesn't.
Yeah, it's like running a whole operating system in the background, yeah.
The other thing that's really cool about it is, how have you ever experienced how quick resume works? Like when you when you power the Xbox off, like totally.
Only this week because my Xbox wouldn't turn on, and it was after an update had happened.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to just work just normally. Like,
it does.
It just loads up. It's so weird.
It's crazy. So I had a situation, maybe the day Mass Effect came out. I don't know. It was like a week or so ago, and the power went out for like a second, and I was like, fuck, I don't remember the last time I saved. Like, that sucks. I'm gonna lose some progress probably, because there's an autosave feature in the first Mass Effect, but it's very like choosy about when it autosaves, so you'll regularly die and be like, fuck, what, that's the last autosave? Shit. Okay. So you got to make sure you're saving, but and I would turn it back on and it would just like pick me right back, drop me right back where I was. I'm just like, yes.
That's awesome.
I love you, Xbox.
Yeah, generally that feature keeps me coming back to games that I would have probably dropped off of usually, just because. And now even more so with the latest update, I've pinned the quick resume games, the games that are in suspended state, to my home screen.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's just like, oh yeah, I was playing that.
It's great. And like the other day, it was like before Mass Effect came out, I was like desperately, like all I wanted to do was play Mass Effect, and I didn't feel like playing anything else. And I had downloaded a couple games on Game Pass and like jumped into like Enter the Gungeon, and like my game of Enter the Gungeon is like still resumed, in the background right now, like fucking a week and a half later, and it's just, that's awesome, it's great.
I've got Tetris Effect in the list, and I haven't played it since like January. It's mad.
It's totally crazy. So anyway, I've been playing Mass Effect. And I'm getting through it. Like, I am pretty close to the end.
I genuinely thought you would have finished it. But I guess we're recording early, so I think if we'd have been recording normal time, you'd have been like, just roll credits on Mass Effect 1.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think if it was a normal week and I had post-stream time tonight and then Friday night and then Saturday night, I probably would have been done with it. Because I think I'm probably 2 more long play sessions away from finishing it. I mentioned last week about how there's kind of like those 3 major quests in the middle. There's actually another one that kind of comes up. So I did that one as well. And so I have one more main, like, big picture kind of quest to do before you kind of get to the end of the game. So I kind of started slowing down, and I've been doing a bunch of the side quests that I wanted to do that, like, were either, like, stories that I remembered or that I thought would be interesting, and I wanted to go check them out. Like, any of the ones that have, like, a plot I'm going and doing before I wrap up and move on to Mass Effect 2. Because I've actually, like, really been enjoying my time with ME1, and I was wondering, you asked me, I think, or maybe it was one of the listeners asked, like, what was the one I was most interested in going back to, and it kind of was Mass Effect 1, because that's the one I always remember as being the worst, and they fixed so many of the fucking problems, like, with pacing and mechanics and stuff that were just, like, not even things that were, like, bad or broken as much as they were just choices that were not good. And, you know, they learned from in 2 and 3. And, like, the game is just so much smoother and, like, it's more fun to play. So I feel less eager to rush through it and get to 2, which is my favorite one.
Why is 2 your favorite? Like, what is it in 2 that improves upon 1? And why is 3 not as good as 2? Is it just because the story arc in 2 is good?
Yeah, I think I'm not as much of a detractor of 3 as a lot of people are. You know, like, obviously there was the whole people didn't like the ending of Mass Effect 3 famously, and I think for a lot of people that kind of poisoned the well, you know, and they were like, Mass Effect 3 is bad because I don't like the ending. And
Is it the ending to the whole trilogy that people don't like then?
Yes.
What's your view on that? Do you like it?
I don't, but I also don't. I don't know. It's. I remember getting to it, and it was weird because I came to Mass Effect late. Like, I started playing 1 and 2 in the lead up to 3, so I was playing 3 when the whole narrative around the ending being bad was kind of like hitting its peak. And I remember going into the ending and being like, what am I going to think? Everybody hates it. Like, uh-oh. And I finished it and was kind of like, oh, that's it? Like, it's not good, but it didn't feel as, like, egregious as people made it out to be either. It just kind of felt like a bit of, like, it, like, landed with a thud. And I remember not feeling bad about it because there's literally a moment right before the ending, like, literally it's the last scene before the ending, and I remember thinking it was the end, and I was like, this is great, this is a great ending, and then the last thing happens, and I was like, oh, I don't like this as much. So, like, it was easy for me to be like, like, that's fine, you know, like, you stumbled at the end of the line, but, like, I know how hard it is to end something in a way that feels satisfying, so, like, for me, it was like the whole journey was so good that it's like, if I don't like the literally last 5 minutes of it, that somehow invalidates the last 150 hours that I was totally in love with. Like, nah.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that view though, because there's a TV show called Line of Duty in the UK that I was in love with. I've been watching it for 10 years, and the final seasons just happened, and it was a really bad ending. Like, really bad. There's been, like, alluding that there's this, like, secret character they've been looking for the last 4 years. It was someone no one would have guessed. It was just not good. Really bad fit. Didn't work. And I kind of feel that people had that similar view with Game of Thrones as well. Like, the final season was meant to be
It was
really
very
bad.
rushed, and yeah. And don't get me wrong, like, I feel that way about Game of Thrones, where, like, the last season is so, like, lazy and, like, rushed and, like, just not good that it does kind of, like, diminish my enthusiasm for the whole. even though, like, if I rewatched it, I'm sure I would still enjoy, at the very least, the first 5 or 6 seasons. However, I feel like with a video game, it's different. Like, because it's not, I don't know. To me, like, the journey was the destination with Mass Effect, right? Like, what's great about it is the friends you make along the way, the characters that you interact with, you know, like, the big moments that you remember, you know? Like, to me, it's like the fact that it ends like the way it ends, it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't know what else they could have done without making a definitive ending. And the fact that you have to honor every player's choices. At some point, you know, stories like this need to constrict again. They need to come together and end in a way that's...
Could they have not done like 3 different endings though, or something to...
Therein lies the controversy. There's not much more I can say about it without...
Because I know there is another like ending you get if you just play the 3rd game, right?
Yeah. There's technically like 5 endings or 6 endings to Mass Effect 3.
But that
like,
final end is
the proper ending is the one that's controversial.
All right, okay. Well, I'll see when I get there, if
You
I
will.
ever get there. We'll see.
I'm excited to play it too because they actually did a update to the ending after the controversy that added a bunch of like scenes at the end that add context to it, that a lot of people felt like addressed some of the issues. So I'm excited to re-experience the ending and see how I feel about it. But the reason Mass Effect 2 is my favorite is I think it has the best cast of companions for the most part. Most of my favorite companions are in that one. And there's only one character who I think... 2 characters who I think are all-time great companions that are not in it. And the story is a little bit... It's interesting because the first Mass Effect has like it has a much smaller story because it's like the opening of it. Like it's like what you think is the big thing at the end of Mass Effect, you realize is like, oh my God, this was only a drop in the bucket. Like, oh fuck. And that's kind of how you're supposed to feel like walking away from it. Whereas like 2 is a way more like you have a mission from the beginning and you build towards it very naturally. Whereas like with Mass Effect, you kind of like are discovering what you're actually pursuing as you go. Like it's more of a mystery that unfolds, which is good. But 2 is like very like, okay, I have this goal. I need to build a team. I'm going to go get some of my old team back. I'm going to find some new people and we're going to go off on this mission and do this mission. And like it just plays out so cleanly. And then 3 is very much like, this is the culmination of the series, and it feels so grandiose and so heavy, that there's not as much space for like levity and lightness, which is a really fun thing about Mass Effect 2 is that like the stakes are high, but like the clock isn't ticking as much. So like your characters have more time to like relax and have fun. Whereas, like, the entirety of Mass Effect 3, it feels like, oh my God, fuck, the sky is falling. Like, what are we going to do? You know?
So I guess Mass Effect 3, you don't really... I mean, I wonder if you play them in quick succession, you'd feel that way. Like, you'll have spent the time with them in Mass Effect 2, you'll have got to know them. So, like, do you really care about any of that by the time you've reached Mass Effect 3? If you see it as one piece...
That's how I played it originally, actually.
Right, okay.
Well, mostly... Like, I played Mass Effect 1 in, like, spurts, but then I got back into it and finished it and then played 2 and then played 3.
Okay. Well, I mean, ignore me then if that's the case, because I kind of felt it kind of feels a little bit like a movie, isn't it? You know, like a very, very long movie, but it's Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And I guess Act 2 is in the middle, you kind of slower pace, reaching the goal, and then Act 3 is like, you know, rushing to the finale of the movie.
Yeah, it kind of feels like when you're like watching a TV show and it's like the first game is like we're trying to figure out what Mass Effect is, and 2 it's like we get it. Here's what it is. We're firing on all cylinders. And then 3 is kind of like having the fucking Herculean task of landing this insane plane that they built after they took off. You know what I mean? Like it's
I get that. Like maybe Mass Effect 1 would have gone through like from Mass Effect 1, it's like The Office Series 1 where they rewrite a few characters, make tidy things up, realize where the series actually is in season 2. And I guess maybe Mass Effect 3 is sort of like when the network said you can have a final season, but you've only got 16 episodes this time instead of 20, and it's like you've
yeah.
really got to rush through to cram everything in as much as
And
possible.
it's like, I don't know. I don't feel like it's that much of a 1-to-1 because I don't think that Mass Effect 3 is not weak in my opinion, excluding the end. It's just I think it has more on its shoulders, like it has to do things that 1 and 2 aren't responsible to do. And like I think there are times where it kind of like doesn't crumble under the weight of that pressure, but it stumbles under it, where it's like, when you have to make it's like, this is the big, insane finale of the greatest video game trilogy of all time. Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, whereas like 2, it's able to just like be a super competent story and like that's all it needs to do,
Do you still feel like this is the greatest video game trilogy of all time?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
At least from a story perspective. If you're talking about, like maybe like pure gameplay or whatever, I think there's an argument for something else. Because like gameplay.
I'm thinking though, if they do a Last of Us 3, it's probably gonna be my one.
I mean, we'll see. Like, I don't know.
I don't want them to make another game.
I don't really either. They could, but I don't know. I think for me, Mass Effect is, and I love The Last of Us. I like them both quite a bit. I think Mass Effect is like, it's just more my kind of game. Like
the choices. I mean, we've spoken about this many times. It's you drive the narrative rather than you're on rails and watching a movie.
And you have been reading Press Reset. It's like they talk about in the first chapter, Warren Spector, like the whole like chasing the promise of Dungeons and Dragons,
I imagine like Mass Effect was heavily inspired by like a Deus Ex that Warren Spector was.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I mean, to me, like those are the games that are the most special, that like let you take ownership over them, And don't get me wrong, I think it's cool that Naughty Dog doesn't do that. Like that they're like, no, like we want to create characters and tell you a story, and like this is our story, and like you're coming along for the ride. Like that's great. Don't get me wrong, I fuck with that. But there's something, I think the reason that fans of like Mass Effect and Dragon Age and games like it are so devoted and so loyal and fall in love with it so much is because you're allowed to express yourself. And, like I've read a lot of good writing about like people who were like, oh, like playing a game like Mass Effect or Dragon Age or something like that, like, like helped me like come out, because I was able to like explore feelings that I didn't have another safe place to explore, and like things like that. And like, I don't know, I like games that allow you to put some of yourself in it, and feel like this is your adventure that you're going on, not just, oh, like you remember that part of the game? How great was that? Like that's cool and everything, but that's a little bit more like a movie or a book or a TV show or whatever. Whereas like what's fun about Mass Effect is less like you remember this part and being like, oh, what did you do? Who did you fall in love with? Like,
I'm excited to do that. Like to go through the choice with you and like figure out like what was different. I guess the closest game I can say I've played to something like this is something like Heavy Rain.
Sure.
Where there are those choices that, have an effect. They have a cause and effect. Because most games you make the choice and it's like you get into the next part anyway. Regardless of what you've picked. It's going down one route and it's very unusual to have something that has that actual effect. I would imagine Disco was like it as well. There's obviously multiple ways to go with that. And that feels like a definitely you can see the lineage from like a BioWare or a Black Isle game into Disco Elysium.
Sure, yeah, and they all come to that back to the pen and paper stuff, you know. But yeah, I think what's so cool about like what BioWare does is like it's got that flavor to it, but it is like with the veneer and execution of like a AAA game, and that like you have this feeling of grandiosity a little bit to it. Which is really
I wonder
cool.
if they're still like that though. People always say like BioWare are like this. When was the last time they put a game out like this? Look at their last games, Andromeda and Anthem. It's like it's been a while since we had something good come out of that studio.
Yeah, and I mean, who's to say? Who's to say? There's a chance we won't see that again. But I don't know. The reading about some of the team that is working on this game, and it's like some of the veterans plus a bunch of new people that love the trilogy. Like, I don't think you need the same.
That's what you need,
Yeah.
You don't need the same. Like, look at what Valve did. They brought some of the Camposanto team in. They brought back some of the writers from Half-Life, and they made a new Half-Life game that people loved. Unfortunately for me, I haven't been able to experience it because I don't have a VR setup.
Right.
But it's seemingly an incredible game, and hopefully BioWare can do that again for the new Dragon Age that I know you're excited for.
I hope so. And I mean, they teased a new Mass Effect that looks to continue the trilogy. So
Oh yeah, I saw that. Were they just like writing out Andromeda, just pretending that didn't happen?
They basically they put out a comic or something that like is like the continuation of that story. So like it happened canonically and everything. They're just not going to continue to explore it. Like I wouldn't be surprised if that came up in a future game or something, but I think they're going to kind of just like silo it off. Which, I mean, to be fair, the whole premise of that is that they sent a ship to another galaxy and that they might never come back. So you could easily just be like, oh, they all died.
Oh, they didn't come back. Yeah,
yeah well.
It would be cool, though, if they had it like a little tidbit in a future game, like maybe quite far into the future, like a historical thing or like a piece of news. It's just like, it went, we've never heard of them ever again, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if they could tie it in some way, it would be cool.
I'm sure they will. But yeah, so my guess is that, between the rumors that we've read about like EA wanting to go back and do more like single player games, after the success of, Jedi and, there's an article that, we read this week that didn't quite make the cut for the news about Laura Miele, who like is a really powerful person at EA who's like wants to change the narrative there. Steve, you called out about how at their EA Play like this year they're bringing back the old school logos and everything. I don't know. I feel like we might be seeing like EA trying to tap into their legacy and their history and maybe try to like have this kind of like a return to form or whatever.
I hope so. It really feels like they're having a bit of a renaissance at the moment, but I would like to also see them go back a little bit more to like experimentation with different things and stop getting stuck in a rut. It feels like we saw a lot of the same games from them.
Yeah.
And like stop chasing the kind of latest and greatest thing, like the fad and the trend of the time. It was like Anthem was just 100% a reaction to Destiny, and it didn't work. We didn't need two Destinies.
Right.
You've got to come up with the next thing, and I think that they could do it.
And I think sometimes the next thing is the last thing, right?
Yeah,
which is like look at God of War.
How long ago? Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And how long ago was it that we had like we've just said, a game like a Mass Effect? We haven't had it in a long time. People were obviously itching for it.
Yeah.
So why not go back to something like that?
Yeah, and it's like you look at like my Twitter mentions right now, like anybody who's playing Mass Effect, they're like, oh my God, like it's so nostalgic. Like I'm so happy to be back in this. And nobody's like, oh, this game feels old in a bad way. It's more like, man, remember when they made games like this? I miss it. And I know I'm not the only person that feels that way. So the idea of like this team being like, hey, our first project as new BioWare is recreating our best trilogy and then making a new game. Like, fuck yeah. Like, let's do it, man. Like, please please come out with a Mass Effect 4 that's great, that is as good as the original trilogy. There's no reason that you can't do it. Like, I don't think it's like they like it was lightning in a bottle and you can't ever repeat it. Like, I think it's just that kind of game fell out of favor, and it became
it went through the cycle of we're doing games like Naughty Dog and the like fixed narrative is what we're doing. And then it was like open world was the latest thing where you just go around doing adventures and there's no real like choices to make. I don't know. It's just I feel like we can get back to it, and we've seen this week that they're opening a new studio, which is good news. They're working on a new open world adventure game.
Which,
hopefully,
again, is going to be a single player thing, right? Which is like, oh, that's exciting that they're like maybe that they're committing to that. But also, aside from all those things that you just talked about, I think the thing that like is a market reality that maybe we don't think about as much is that Jason mentions this in Press Reset that GameStop was a huge contributor to the quote unquote death of single player AAA games, because they were a huge gut to sales. The reselling selling your game back to GameStop, and they sell it to somebody for $50 brand new, rather than your sealed copy that actually gives EA a cut. Whereas now most people are on digital, and even more are on digital now after 2020, that maybe you buy the game on sale or you get it on Game Pass or whatever, but like they get their money one way or the other. Not like, GameStop, who's just pocketing it, and they don't see that cut, So I think all of those things are like factors that could lead to this kind of game.
I gotta say though, like part of me wishes there was a way to share games. So we've got a question that I will bring up from Brendy in the MailPot, which was like piracy and password sharing are hurting big companies, which has been in the TV news lately. It's a conversation that's always going on in the game space. What game series would you have never gotten into without borrowing a copy from a friend or downloading from the internet? For example, I would have never given Capcom the amount of money I have for Ace Attorney games if not for emulation. Wish you both the best, Brendy. Like, you can't share games anymore if it's digital. I used to constantly like swap games with friends and like share, and you would learn so much from doing that and find out what tastes you had, like, and even piracy. I'd never played a Pokemon game in my life until I pirated Pokemon Red. I think it was Fire Red, and played it on a GBA emulator.
Yeah. So to answer Brendy's question, I guess before, tying it into what you were just talking about, Mass Effect actually is one. I borrowed Mass Effect 1 from, if you're a regular, visitor of our Twitch streams on Thursday nights, Relic Vampire, who's in the chat a lot, is a long time friend of mine, and he loaned me, I think, Mass Effect 1 and 2, and then I bought 3 myself. So yeah, I mean, that was a series that I got into that way, secondhand. Probably a lot that I don't even remember, because that was so common back in the day. You would trade games with your friends.
It was the thing to do, because you would only really be playing one game at a time because they would cost so much, and then you would just share them. GTA 3 is another one that comes to mind. My mum would not let me buy GTA. She was dead against it. My friend like sneakily lent me his copy at school.
Yeah.
Can't remember what I swapped for, and I remember playing that without my mum knowing, and then she heard me like playing it, and she was not happy. She took off.
Yeah, I remember my parents basically caught me and a friend playing that once. We're like, what the fuck is this? Like, holy shit! Like, no, this isn't cool. And then I would just go play it at their house, and it was like we just wouldn't play it at my house anymore. But yeah, in terms of like it hurting, big companies or whatever, I mean, the reality is that it does, right? Like that, not to be the unpopular opinion person, but like you borrowing that game means that they didn't get that sale, right? And if every person who borrowed or bought a secondhand game bought that same copy new, right? Like you could argue that maybe some studios that we like wouldn't have closed down, whatever.
I would never make that. Having reading through Jason's book, that's not the argument I would make for like studios shutting down. It's always mismanagement. That's the biggest takeaway I'm taking from that.
More often than not, yeah. But like, there are definitely like, you look at like a game like there's like the Mythic chapter with like Dead Space, right? And it's like
I haven't got that yet. Yeah.
When you get there, right, the whole problem was that Dead Space sold more and more every generation, but it wasn't enough, and it just like never became enough of a big thing for them to keep it going. And it's like, you could make that argument if GameStop didn't exist, maybe it sells another 1 million copies, and then maybe that's enough, and then like maybe that's a poor argument.
You've also got to wonder, like, this is a brand new franchise. How many people bought that first game secondhand that were then so into the second series that it did sell more next year in the second sequel?
And like, you can look at like Mass Effect, right? And like, that was the thing for me. Like, I was a sale on Mass Effect 3 that hadn't been on 1 and 2, and but you could make the argument, right, that like in today times, right, if that was the case, if Mass Effect 3 was coming out, in a month or two, and I had decided I really wanted to catch up, I'd have had to buy it, right? And that would be a sale that they would have gotten. And maybe I get it on sale and it's like $10 now, but that's still money that they see. And I'm not even like necessarily making that argument. I only bring that up to say that is a phenomenon that has kind of changed, right? Like, the traditional wisdom is that when a game comes out, it sells almost all of its copies right up front, and then it pretty much doesn't ever, like, that's kind of it, right? Like, that's the life of the game. And it might get some sales here and there from then on, but whatever. Whereas I feel like now with like, the more centralized marketplace and everything, like, you do see games have a second and a third life, and, and continue to make money over a longer period of time. And that's something that, you'll read about in the book too. A lot of indie devs experience that, where it's like, oh, the game wasn't
a big
hit,
I know, especially when like the Switch came out, a lot of indie devs had a massive influx of people coming in. I'm curious about what your thoughts are on like password sharing though. Like, everyone does it. I share a Netflix account. Everyone shares a Netflix account. No one doesn't.
I mean, my opinion on it is like, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's
like, it's hurting people.
Yeah, I mean, it does though. Like, it materially does. I don't think there's any way you can make an argument that it doesn't. If you didn't share a Netflix password with someone and they had to buy their own access to Netflix or not use the service, like that,
I think that's more likely the scenario than not, is people just wouldn't use it. I don't think many people would lose sales.
I don't know.
In terms of on Netflix subscriptions,
I don't think it would be 1-to-1, but I don't agree with that necessarily. I don't think that everybody who borrows a Netflix password is unwilling to pay for Netflix. I think
no, that's true, but I really do wish Netflix would just make a family plan.
I agree.
Like, if they want to go legit, do what Spotify did. Make it so you pay more per month and you can share it. Yeah, or Nintendo. The last point on Brandon's question, though, about the piracy stuff, I've said before on the show, we had a chipped PS1. That's how I got all of my PlayStation games, and that is how I got into video games at all. Like, we wouldn't have been able to afford PlayStation games or be able to buy new games all the time. That was the only way that we were able to. And now I give thousands of pounds of my money to these game companies every year.
Absolutely. So there's plenty. Any franchise you ever played on PlayStation. So I know you have things to say about Tomb Raider and Press Reset, but you'll have more to say next week. So let's jump into the news. Because we just riffed for like 45 minutes. So jumping into the news, our first piece is a bit of controversy on the Nintendo side of things. So as we know, Skyward Sword HD is coming to Switch later this year. And there was an announcement earlier today, as of this recording. Yesterday. That there is a Amiibo that's coming out for $25, which is expensive for an Amiibo. But it is one of those like plus-sized ones. Like if you remember from the Breath of the Wild set, there was like the Guardian one that was like
Yeah, I have
big.
that one. It's great.
And yeah, I've got that one too. And like that cost
What about
extra money.
the woolly Yoshi was the one I always wanted.
I have that as well.
Oh.
You can actually see him right behind me here if you're watching the video, and I have the blue one right there.
Oh, it's so cute.
Yeah, it's a good one. So $25, but it is an oversized one, and it's Zelda with the Loftwing, like the bird that you fly around in Skyward Sword. And the controversy wasn't about the figure or its cost. It was that the only way to access the game's fast travel feature will be through using this amiibo. So essentially what Nintendo has done here is lock, a key, what some would argue is a key gameplay feature in a fast travel system behind a $25 amiibo for a game that people are already feeling a little bit stiff about in terms of the price. There was a lot of controversy when this was announced that this was going to be a $60 game. So I guess, Steve, what do you think about this?
Well, I like the statue. I think it looks cool, and I can see this being
amiibo.
like a model.
Yeah,
it's really cute. But yeah, locking features behind essentially a paywall sucks, and it really should have been eradicated years ago. We shouldn't be doing this kind of crappy feature. But having said that, this is something that wasn't in the original game, fast travel. So it's an addition, and I get that addition should be in a game that's $60 and is a remaster, and there's a bunch of other additions to this game that weren't in the original game, like the fact that you don't have to use motion controls. Yeah, it's crap. I really hope that Nintendo either clarifies their position or like says that we fucked up. We'll do a patch and you can access it without having to use the amiibo. But as of now, this is the only amiibo compatible with the game, so you have to buy this amiibo in order to unlock this feature. It's not like if you have any other existing Zelda amiibo, you can use it and it unlocks the feature. You have to pay this additional $25, which makes your $60 game
an $85.
And that's a very big price tag for a game that's from like what, 2006?
I'll tell you what, the announcement of this makes me not want to buy the game because I was already kind of on the fence about buying the game, but I definitely want the amiibo. So I'm like, I'm just going to buy the amiibo and probably not play the game.
Do that. I mean, the amiibo's cool.
I really like it. It's really nice. It's a really nice figure.
It looks nicer than the game looks, in my opinion. That game just looks woof. No.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, yeah, I guess just to clarify my thoughts, like this is a shitty predatory thing from Nintendo. I'm disappointed, but not surprised. They do stuff like this all the time. So.
What do you mean, like the Mario collection just disappearing?
Yeah, take your pick. So
I think I hate that more. Like Mario 35 just gone forever. We had this really good, cool game that everyone loved, and now you can never play it ever again because they wanted to just have it as a limited time thing.
I definitely think that's worse, but like, yeah, whatever. Like this is one of those things where like normally when people are like outraged about this kind of thing, I'm like, all right, guys, like relax, like like it sucks, but I get it. This is just like, come on, man. This is a bad look, in my opinion. This is real kind of like, and it's a $25 amiibo, no less. Like
if it worked with any amiibo, it was just like,
if it worked with any Zelda amiibo, that would be way more acceptable. It would still be predatory and shitty, but it would be way, way easier to justify. This is like kind of like, come on, dude. Like, what if you don't want an amiibo? You just want to use
many people don't, yeah.
Right, like, I don't know. So, moving right along, this next one comes from a tweet that I made earlier this week.
Comes from you. Comes from Live Pete.
It does. So, earlier this week, Twitter user Rolling Soul Diver at HB John Juandao on Twitter, tweeted a few pictures that were pulled from it's the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. It's like the annual report for Activision Blizzard. It's publicly available information. And they captioned it, God, fuck you, Activision Blizzard. I hate you motherfuckers so much. And the reason for that, I would say pretty justified statement, is if you take a look here, they have essentially a kind of explanation for how the budget broke down. And the quote that I'll pull here, it says, the decrease in net revenues from retail channels for 2020 as compared to 2019 was primarily due to lower revenues from Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, which was released in November 2020 as compared to Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, which was released in March 2019. The decrease was partially offset by higher revenues from Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, which released in October 2020, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, which was released in September 2020. So.
But, right, before you go off on one, I want to bring your attention to the previous image that was posted, the consolidated results. Net revenues by distribution channel. Digital online, 6.6 billion. Retail channels, 741 million. So the digital sales,
that's crazy,
significantly outweigh. It's only the retail channels where they're saying that Call of Duty didn't sell as well. But if you read the last section of digital online channels, Call of Duty Modern Warfare sold, like, there was higher revenues from those games than previous years online. So it's just that very small section. It's like boxed copies of those games that sold better than Call of Duty because most people bought Call of Duty digitally this year.
That makes sense.
It still sucks. It's still fucking bullshit.
And that's important context. That's important. That's important to point out. Still, what I ended up tweeting was, can we admit now that Activision is worse than EA? And
I think we could have admitted that a couple of weeks ago when we had Bobby Kotick's contract reevaluated, and it's like even the shareholders were angry with him for taking so much money.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I gotta circle back to this just at least this one time because it's really frustrating, and I'm interested to see if you feel more viscerally about it as you get further through Jason's book, because it's really hard for me to not think.
No, I know I will be more irritated by it. Just reading that first one and how the whole fucking Epic Mickey thing.
Yeah,
it's just that, and then they just the studio's closed.
And it's that's literally what Activision did to these teams. They put out these extremely successful games that offset losses that their flagship fucking property had made, and their reward is to be like, cool, say goodbye to your creative autonomy. It's extremely disappointing.
6.6 billion from digital, and you've got to imagine most of that is World of Warcraft and probably Call of Duty Warzone at this point.
Yeah, probably specifically those two, because WoW had a new expansion that came out recently too, which is always you look at World of Warcraft revenue and that's their fucking model. They put out the thing, it spikes for a couple of months, and then it tapers off until the next content drop or whatever. And, you got to imagine, I'm sure Warzone is making money hand over fist.
Oh, yeah. There's a reason these studios are just constantly working on Warzone assets. I mean, it came out today, all the Warzone stuff they're adding for John McClane from Die Hard and Rambo's being added. To get them all is £35 to just buy those things. It's just and people will pay for it.
Oh, yeah, of course I will. And, like, why wouldn't you, though, right? Like, if you play that game every day, like, if that's your main game and, like,
Yeah.
it's free, like, why wouldn't you buy content for it, right? Like, yeah, that's why the model works. I'm willing to bet that that's where most of that digital revenue came from, is probably those two sources.
Yes, I mean it's a 35% increase over 2019, so you can imagine it's from those games.
Yeah. So anyway, it's, it's business as usual, but it's disappointing. And
I think I think the way the tweet contexts it though, it really just like glosses over the fact that they made almost 7 billion from digital sales,
yeah, I mean
and that retail is such a small portion.
they do follow up. They have like kind of like a few more tweets that explains it a little bit, but like it's definitely like they're reacting to that bit. And like to your point, there's a broader context, but it's also hard to not look at that and still get mad, because like,
Oh yeah, 100%. But
like,
I also got to think like this is coming up to the Christmas. It's like October. This is the financials ends December 31st. People are probably buying Crash Bandicoot and Tony Hawk's for people for Christmas because they know they played those games when they were kids, and buying them for them when they're adults is that bit of nostalgia. But I'm surprised that Call of Duty sold so poorly because that's like the one that sells every year. It was like that pinnacle. It's like everyone gets FIFA and everyone gets Call of Duty.
yeah. I mean, I think. I think that's the thing, right? Like the context that they have here, right? The second, I'll just read the second tweet. It says, "Okay, let me explain. Since people can't read revenue reports, digital profits in 2020 were high because Call of Duty Modern Warfare microtransactions held strong. This led to an overall increase in profits from 2019. Retail sales were way down for various reasons." And that's the context, right? It's like, yeah, Activision was more profitable, but they also put out a free-to-play game that makes a ton of money in microtransactions. So, like, sure, great. That doesn't, like if Crash Bandicoot and Tony Hawk didn't come out this year, their retail numbers would have been through the floor,
Well, and you can see why. I mean, it was the pandemic. No one went out to buy games.
No, but I mean, like, I still bought games from retailers, Like I bought
like Amazon, I guess.
Yeah, right. Or like I bought Crash Bandicoot from Target because it was on. I got it on sale, and I was like, oh, cool, I want that. So that's a thing that I just think is worth pointing out. It's a shame. So while we're on the subject of Tony Hawk, as everyone will remember, last year we got the reveal of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake at the Summer Game Fest. Well, as luck would have it.
It's like the only reveal I remember from the Summer Game Fest last year.
That's because it was the best one.
None of the others I remember.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow, I just opened the website and I'm like, pink.
But as luck would have it, the entire not the entire, but the preliminary list for Summer Games Fest 2021 has been revealed this week. So right now there are only 4 events on the calendar, all of which are in June. On 10th we have the kickoff, which is going to be Jeff Keighley with a world premiere showcase, a performance by Weezer, Day of the Devs, and more. We've got Ubisoft Forward on June 12th. Then we have Steam Next Fest, which I guess is Steam throwing their hat in the presentation ring, which is very interesting. It says 6 days, hundreds of demos. Oh, wait, no, that's their big demo thing they do every year. They let
you download all the games. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a thing. I guess I just didn't recognize the branding. And then EA Play Live is July 22nd. So sorry, that one's not in June.
Do you ever feel like they're sort of just chucking all these events under the Summer Game Fest moniker, but it's really nothing to do with the Summer Games Fest? Like, do you ever feel like these events would have just happened if Summer Games Fest wasn't a thing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the thing is they would, but that's like what Summer Games Fest is trying to be, I think. Is like...
It's so strange to me. Like, isn't that what E3 is? Like, everyone does their own presentation there?
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Is like Jeff Keighley and the ESA broke up. Jeff Keighley was the, creative mind behind E3 for many of the last couple years, and he broke off to do his own thing. And you see how many of these publishers and just game makers, right, have broken away from the ESA and don't want to work with them, but know Jeff and have a working relationship with Jeff, and it costs nothing to probably be a part of. I'm saying that I might be speaking out of turn. I don't know if maybe Jeff does require a cut or something, but we know how much it costs to be at E3.
I think there is. Well, I vaguely remember that there was a cost that came out for being at the Game Awards. From one of the indie devs said that if you want to highlight your game at the Indie Game Awards, so I would imagine Summer Game Fest's big presentation is the same thing to cover the costs of it.
Sure.
I am excited to see what's at that.
That
live world premiere, because in his tweet where he announced it, the partners were all in there, and it's the one in particular that really stood out to me was PlayStation, and I would love to see if they are there presenting something, because obviously they've not been at E3 for this must be like the third or fourth year now.
I think this will be the third year. Yeah.
It'd be great to see something new from them.
The only major name that's missing from the roster is Nintendo.
From the Summer Games Fest?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
I mean,
Xbox is on there.
Xbox is here. You've got PlayStation. You've got Sega. You've got Bandai Namco, Steam, Square, Ubisoft, Warner Brothers, Riot, Epic, EA, 2K, Activision. I do like how they have Amazon Games and then Prime Gaming as two different ones, and like Activision and Blizzard are two different ones, and like
yeah, and then Epic and Mediatonic and Psyonix, they're all the same.
And Epic, yeah. It's like, all right, maybe you're trying to stuff the box a little bit here, but you look at this, it's arguably a better list than E3. So I mean, I don't know. It's the thing, right? Like, we know how much it costs to be a part of E3. Like, it's famously expensive. So even if Jeff is charging, but it's a lot less, like, it kind of behooves these organizations to be a part of it, because, yeah, maybe your event was going to happen anyway, but, like, does Ubisoft Forward, does that have as much brand recognition? Does that get as much viewership or whatever? Like, Summer Games Fest is a thing now, and now you can be a part of that marketing machine and be a part of it and get the promo and do your own thing, but also get support from Jeff and his sphere of influence.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think my issue with it last year was I never knew when anything was happening. So I'm pretty glad to see there is like a clear schedule.
A hub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like last year it was very much like follow Jeff on Twitter. Oh, I've got Tony Hawk's coming on my show tomorrow, and it's like, oh, okay.
It's like, fuck.
Yeah, that was happening.
Yeah, it would be great to have known yesterday, so I could get ready and schedule, being available and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how it plays out this time around. I thought last year was definitely a mixed bag. And to your point, like, I really didn't feel like it felt as significant as E3, whereas I think this year it's going to feel a lot more like an E3 competitor. So I'm interested to see how that shakes out. So really, really weird piece of news this week that I am really stoked for. There's not a lot to chew on yet, but it goes a little something like this. Timesplitters is coming back, and it's coming back in a super weird roundabout way, and I'm fucking here for it. So, Deep Silver has announced that the disbanded studio, Free Radical Design, has reformed and is going to be making a new fucking Timesplitters game. Which I don't...
Wow, just up the road from me in Nottingham as well.
Yeah. And it's just super weird. Like, I've never heard of... Like, I can't remember this ever happening. Where, like, a studio that was closed is like, we're getting the band back together. We're going to make another Times. It's weird as hell.
They usually just go make a new one.
Yeah, or like,
we start a new studio.
It's a new studio with some of the old people or whatever, right? But it's like, yeah, it's super weird.
I kind of feel like that's what this is, but they're just rewording it differently.
Yeah, Probably a little
I
bit.
know this key original members include founder Steve Ellis and David Doak, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And it says that this highly respected team has a 22-year heritage of making AAA products. So, but I don't know, like the fact that like the co-founders are back and being like, we're reforming our studio to make this game is unique. Like, obviously it's not the same team, but like having the same creative leads, the co-founders come back and revive the brand just to revive this brand is like super. It's super interesting. It's super interesting. I truly can't think of anything else like this ever happening.
No, me neither.
And Timesplitters is super fun. So
I've never played it. Like, how do they play?
it's a light gun game.
A light gun game.
Yeah.
Oh. I wonder how they're going to work now, then.
I don't know. That's going to be the interesting thing, I think. It's going to be very interesting.
I'm excited to see what happens. Like, yeah, this is the first time I've ever heard of a studio coming like back from the dead, and I know this is a beloved franchise by many.
Yeah, definitely. It's one that like I was never like super big into, but like I had a friend that was like a really big fan. So it was like kind of a game I always got my hands on, you know. But yeah, just the whole narrative around it I think is just super interesting. So yeah, you go get it. You go get it, Free Radical. Welcome back. All right, so we got a few quick updates on the Apple Epic lawsuit, you know, because obviously like it's just like video game news headlines are spinning out of this thing left and right every other day. So I'm gonna let you take this over, Steve, because I know you pulled these. You had a few that you thought were super interesting and you wanted to pull to the table. So
Yeah,
take it away.
So a couple of these relate to Xbox's and Microsoft's deposition. Nintendo contacted the court this week. This is reported by Stephen Totillo over at Axios Gaming, who dug these out from the depositions and said that this executive's deposition in Epic versus Apple reflect competitively sensitive information about negotiations between Nintendo and Microsoft, and she was primarily deposed about trying to bring xCloud to iOS. So I'm very, very excited that this could potentially mean xCloud on Nintendo Switch.
It could, or
that. No, it does. We know it does, Pete.
Or it could mean that they had negotiations about it, but they stalled out.
I don't think so, with the Switch on Phil Spencer's shelf every 2 seconds and like popping up at an Xbox like live event.
Who's to say? Yeah.
Where there's smoke, there's fire, Pete, and you know it's on my predictions list, so that's my risky pick.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
And then the other one was one I think I missed last week when I was digging through them, and it's this like newsletter I think they distribute that's like a PowerPoint presentation, the executive portfolio update to something called the GGPD portfolio team. And in this is a internal review from Microsoft on Sony's The Last of Us Part 2. And it like lays out like the Metacritic score, the sales results that it had, but there's an actual review from someone who has played the game and just like has thoughts on it, and it's a really great review in my eyes. But it's so blunt because nobody outside of the company is reading this review, and presumably it's for Microsoft to figure out, should we make a game that's like this? I loved this line from it, which was, that said, Naughty Dog still can't seem to make decent gun combat in any of their games, and this one
any is underlined. Which
yeah, any is underlined.
Damn, all right. Tell us how you really feel. So funny.
I'd love to know who wrote it. And like, what a cool job this would be, just like getting to play games And I'd imagine you get paid the big bucks at Microsoft on the executive team to write these reviews for the executives who can't be bothered to play video games or don't have time themselves to play them, and gets the knowledge of like, this game came out. Here's what it is. Here's a good review of it. You can then go talk to people about video games.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's like, it's one of those things where it's like you would assume that.
Right. You would know what's happening.
Yeah, that like, but yeah, PlayStation and Microsoft and Nintendo are looking at what each other do and are like, could we do this? Could we do that? Like, is this something we should be looking at? Whatever. Like, but to see it in black and white is like very interesting. Of like, holy shit, like, really? Like, you're passing around internal reviews of your competitor's software? Like, that's fascinating. And I don't know, it's so funny just because, and like, obviously that, you know, all in good fun. But like you said, how blunt that was. I thought it was really funny where it's like, oh, they still haven't managed to make a game with any gunplay. And my fucking smart ass hot take response to that to you was, well, Microsoft hasn't managed to put out a game that anybody cares about in about 5 or 6 years. So, checkmate, I guess. I hear the gunplay in Gears 5 is great. Too bad I'll never play it.
Oh, the gunplay though, like I was talking about it on Twitter, and I was just like, the gunplay in Naughty Dog's games really isn't great. Like, no. They hit the nail on the head there. Like, they know.
Absolutely. That's the thing. I'm not saying this as like a Sony pony to defend Naughty Dog. It's more just like, all right, Microsoft, that's a lot of shade from you. And what's the most successful game from the Xbox One's generation? Sorry, how many copies did it sell?
Yeah, but then they'll just say, how much money have we got in the bank versus Sony?
They don't give a fuck.
It's also interesting on this. Page 8 is a bunch of redacted stuff. There's 2 games from the first quarter of 2021 that has been released.
They're just totally redacted, yeah.
No, but the rest of the list, like, there must be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games on that list, I reckon, based on the size of the other ones. That are just, we have no idea what they are. From like Q1 of 2021.
Yeah, I think it's got to be like around 10 to 12 maybe.
I'd love to know what these dates are. Like MLB The Show 21. Release date February 2020.
It came out later than that. Yeah.
Like it came out this year. Like was that last February it was due? Like tell me why August 2020. It was due out then, right? It came out then. Tell me why.
Yeah.
So yeah, MLB The Show was like a year late. Same with Balan Wonderland.
That's odd. Man, can you believe that game was a year late and it's still bad?
Yes, I can.
It's kind of hilarious. Yeah, it's wild. It's really wild.
Mm.
Whoa! Then, oh my god! Yeah, and then there was I forgot about this too. They have the competitive console exclusives.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Where it's literally just them listing out like, here's all the games we need to worry about.
Right, and there's still some like more redacted stuff on here, like, you know, Astro's Playroom is mentioned as a pack-in title during their June PS5 event, and Marvel Spider-Man is the first time they've shown off with new PS5 packaging. Redacted. Obviously, a lot of this is very likely to change, but our best guess is this is our best guess as of July 2020.
Crazy. Like, can this just be like? How do you get this job where I put together this PowerPoint?
Well, you know all of the internal information, you get to play all the other games, and like, oh my god, what a job!
And just be like, here you go, guys. Here's my report on like the stuff we should be aware of as Xbox. Like that would be such a cool gig. Who does this? And
then what was it not released? Q3 of 2020.
Oh, is it just these people at the top? Is it Damon Baker, Mike Mace, Nick Zoll?
Those are the portfolio team, yeah, who like dishes out this update. Yeah.
Didn't Damon Baker used to work at like IGN?
I don't know. Like I've heard of him, and I can picture his face. He joined the Xbox team. Yeah, he was formerly of Nintendo, not of Xbox team.
Interesting. There you go.
He was the person that was on those indie ones.
Oh, yeah. I knew the name was familiar. John Katz, I feel like I recognize too. But yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I'm loving this court case. Sadly, it's over next week, so we're not really gonna have anything more coming out of Discovery. But you can believe whatever the result, it's gonna get appealed. Either side's gonna appeal, so we can expect some more juicy tidbits coming out for
Oh
years and
yeah.
years to come.
Oh yeah. All right, cool. So let's jump into the mail pot here before we wind this one down. We've got a question here from that doc guy, one of our Patreon supporters from the Discord, who wrote in and said, "What innovations do you think are going to be in Breath of the Wild 2?" Love this question.
Well,
haven't got to talk about Breath of the Wild properly in quite some time.
well, if based on the news this week, I feel like a key feature of the game is going to be locked behind a $25 amiibo.
Of course.
So we've got that to look forward to. Now, I really don't know. One thing I hope they do is they either expand upon the runes that we got and the skills that we got with the magnesis and the two different types of bombs and the ice towers. I kind of hope we get different ones. I'd love to see like fire instead of ice, and maybe use the wind for something instead of magnets.
Yeah, I think that's probably the innovation I expect to see the most is just like adding tools to the arsenal. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw like some classic like Zelda items maybe come back. Like I could see, can you imagine how cool it would be if you had hook shots? Like you could do like I'm going to glide and then, like I'm going down, but I want to get back up. So I hook shot to something far away and I get like Spider-Man pulled up and then I can glide again. And like, that would be really cool. You could see how something like that would really impact, your like, your movement, just through the world. And that was such a big part of Breath of the Wild is like the physics and how you can interact with things. So I feel like it's a matter of like, hopefully not taking tools away and replacing them, but like building on what we already have and like giving us more toys to play with, so that we can.
Yeah, I just wonder how confusing that would get. I don't know. I kind of think that we'll get more, like you say, rather than taking them away. But there's something about Breath of the Wild's puzzle design that because you've only got these four restrictive skills, it forces you to kind of think. And sometimes there was a couple of ways to solve them, and sometimes there was only one.
Yeah.
I feel like if you had a bunch of tools and you could just like fire them all at it, would get quite confusing, and you're not restricted in what you can do.
I don't think you need to add that many though. Like like you said, there's like four, right? In Breath of the Wild. So like maybe that goes up to 6, right? Maybe that goes up to
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe even goes to 8, right? And you double them, but like, you limit their interactions in certain puzzles. So it's like you go in and you're like, which ones do I need to use, right? Because that's kind of how they work, right? Is you go into every puzzle and you're like, I know I have the tools to solve this. It's just deciding which ones it is,
Oh, I forgot about the stasis. That's the one I didn't like the most, the stasis.
I liked using it in combat more. Like I always loved like when the bokoblins are riding it and you freeze them and the horse keeps running. Like that's always like shit like that's funny. Or like, freezing like a rock and hitting the shit out of it and then just like pummeling it through people. Like shit like that was always fun.
That one's always fun. I also think a lot of people, and I know you probably count yourself in with this as well, want a kind of return to the traditional dungeons. I know you said there's something you missed when we were playing Ocarina of Time. Was like, man, I really just miss going through these dungeons.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of coming around to that. Having played Tomb Raider, where there's these like secret tombs, optional tombs you can solve. They're like puzzles and you go through. And then it reminded me of, and obviously Horizon was heavily inspired by them.
Sure.
The sort of like factories you would go into where they would be making the robots. I'd love to see something like that where it's a more expansive, multiple puzzles to solve you get through that aren't just like the the divine beasts.
Yeah,
It is
like
just
more dungeoneering, where
hmm
it's like, oh, like this triggers this, and this, like, oh, I found this, but I'm gonna need to come back here when I get this other thing. Like, yeah, I would like to see them pepper those in. Like, I feel like rather than the divine beasts, if you had like the same map, even, but it's a couple years later and some stuff's changed, and like you find like 7 ancient temples that you need to go through or whatever, and like not necessarily getting rid of the flow of Breath of the Wild, but just like peppering that back in, I think would be really
yeah,
cool.
and I think you can do that rather than having divine beasts. Like you say, have like the 7 temples you go to. Maybe you have to acquire items or something or unlock them from there so you can get to the final place where you probably defeat Ganon once again.
Sure. um, those are all things I would like to see and that I think are possibly on the table. The other thing that everyone's obviously thrown out too is like, will Zelda be playable? I'd like to think so. I have a hard time thinking that she will be.
No, I don't think she will be. I think the problem is when they gave Zelda a voice, they kind of took that off the table for me. Link's never had a voice because you are Link and
Yeah,
you're playing that. You are the protagonist. When you give the character a voice, they become, part of that narrative. You either need to give Link a voice as well, or Zelda becomes quiet again when you're playing her. And to me, that doesn't make sense.
I think in terms of an innovation I wouldn't mind seeing would be if they're not going to make Zelda playable, making her like a supporting character in the way that like Elizabeth was in like BioShock Infinite, right? Or like I don't know. I'm trying to think of another example. That's probably the best one. But like something like that where it's like, oh, like Link doesn't talk, right? So like Zelda is there. So when you interact with people, she talks to them, right? Or like
Mhm.
you give you as a player someone to bounce off of, and like that, when there's a fights, like she uses magic or whatever, like she's just there and she's like an AI character who can kind of just have your back, like, and kind of be like a Navi or like the other kinds of like companion characters they used to have, but like that isn't fucking annoying because people like Zelda. Um, that would, I think, be an innovation worth exploring as well. But I also worry that then like that might take away from some of the like I'm like free in exploring this map.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Like you feel like you're alone in this desolate place. But I would love to see them like pull a Taken 2, where it is, you know, Link's been captured and now you're playing as Zelda.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
Who
would be
is
cool.
going to go get them?
But I think you'd have to do it that way. Like I think Breath of the Wild 2 would have to be like you just play as Zelda, and I
Hmm.
that's not a problem. I'm totally open for that. But I think you'd have to just commit to this is a game where you play as Zelda because she would fight so differently than Link. Um,
Hmm.
I could also see them maybe doing like a Dishonored 2 thing where it's like you play as Link or you play as Zelda, and then like you get a different
It'd be
story.
great if there was replayability.
That'd be cool.
That's like I always loved that in the Resident Evil games where you would be
Chris or
in
Jill.
Resident Evil 2, yeah, it would be well, yeah, Resident Evil's Chris or Jill, Resident Evil 2 was Leon or Claire, and you always could go back and play, and you would see different areas that you wouldn't get to see as the other player because you couldn't access them.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. Speaking of Resident Evil, that's a great segue into our question from Left Eye Lazy, who wrote in from the Discord and said, with so much fan art and social media marketing from fans for RE8, Capcom is seeing a massive sales bump for the entirety of the franchise right now, and arguably, it's all because of the giant vampire mommy. What franchise do you think? What franchise do you want to see get a horny push in the next few years? I love this question because it's funny because it's like on the onset it's like, oh, that's a funny question, but like it's true. Like I don't know if they necessarily had that thought of like, oh, like,
Oh,
this is gonna be a viral fucking thing and everyone's gonna go nuts for it, but like, yeah, like it sure did. Like I feel like Resident Evil's been quietly back since 7 and like kind of been like, yeah, no, we're fucking back, man. Like we're a game of the year contender. We might not win, but we're there. Like, and it's kind of quietly been earning its fucking cachet back. And then
mhm.
8 feels like the game that like, oh, it came out and everybody's it's got everyone's attention right now.
And I've got a bit of FOMO about it because I really want to experience this giant vampire lady. What is she, like 10 feet
I
tall?
think she's 9 feet tall. Yeah,
it's mad.
it's like fucking crazy. So in terms of like what franchise could benefit from this,
it's not necessarily a benefit. It's
what
like
you'd want.
What you'd want.
I don't really.
And I think it's got to be a franchise that's beloved, that fell out of favor. You want it to come back, but I can't think of something that's like gone stale that I'm still into, which is difficult because like it feels like they kept making Resident Evil games, but none of them hit, none of them landed.
Yeah, 5 and 6 like were kind of people weren't about it.
Maybe we do a Mario Party, horny push for Mario Party.
I don't know.
What have we already got? We've already got Diddy Kong with his,
his
pasties on his.
his pasties. That's true. Shoot, I don't know, because I'm trying to think about it, and I'm trying to think of like an answer that would actually work and like not be like, not feel crass or not feel like out of place, Because like I don't feel that way about Lady Domestic. I can never say her name.
Lady D.
Lady
Let's
D.
call her that.
Which we agreed I shouldn't call her maybe, but that's fine. Because like I think it works so well because she's a villain. And it was like, oh, this is immediately striking, and it immediately gives the game an identity, And I'm trying to think, like, how do you do that?
Like my struggle is I just can't think of another franchise that's gone stale.
That needs it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's an argument to be made, and I say this as a BioWare fan. We lean into the horniness on Mass Effect and Dragon Age. It's always been one of the parts that people love, We go full frontal.
I mean, it seems that in the latest Assassin's Creed, they went full in with it as well. Like, I was playing
really?
I was playing as Cassandra in I think it was Odyssey. Yeah. And she would sleep with anyone. Like, I spoke to this guy, this guy, and he was like, "Oh, please, can you help my wife?" And I'm thinking, "Yeah, sure, I'll help your wife. She really needs someone to take care of her." And I'm like, "I can take care of her. What do you need?" He wanted me to sleep with his wife.
And you're like, "Yeah, all right, fine.
Yeah, fuck it, why not?"
Yeah, whatever.
She was an attractive lady. I'm an attractive lady. Let's just do it.
If I can help out, sure, I'll roll my sleeves up and do the hard work, That's fucking hilarious. Yeah. I think I'll leave it at that one. Because the only other one that came to mind was like maybe you give Metroid like a sexy villain.
I was thinking that, like, but I don't think it needs it because any time there's a Metroid game is going to sell anyway.
I mean, Samus is already
desperate.
hot. But that's the thing, right? Is like she's tough, and like I feel like that's not to say that she can't be sexy, but I feel like I don't think you'd want to lean into that for her character. But like if you give her like an antagonist that has that like scary anime like villain energy, like that could work. That could work as like a good like counterpoint to her maybe. That isn't like Dark Samus or, Mother Brain or whatever. Okay. I think we did some important work here today, Steve. So we were gonna do a little predictions recap this episode, but we're definitely running long in the tooth, so we'll put a pin in that one maybe for next week, unless there's another main topic worthy topic. But yeah, so that'll be on the docket for next week. If you want to tune in for that one, you can hear us talk about our predictions so far. We'll check in and see who's winning. How do we feel about some of the other ones? Are there any others that we can definitely cross off? So that'll be a fun time because there will be a winner and there will be a loser. The question is,
or there'll be a tie. What happens at a tie?
Well, then we keep it rolling. We wait and see. But I think the important thing to remember is that next week, Steve has placed his honor on the line and promised to all of us that he will have played Mass Effect. He promised to me, to you listeners, all right here in front of God. So I hope that Steve honors his promise and proves to be the man that I think him to be, which is one of honor and integrity. So we'll see how that plays out. So it's going to be an interesting episode either way next week.
I don't know where you got that from. Was it the time I bought Fire Emblem and played 5 minutes?
Maybe I just like to think the best of my friends. I don't know.
I think so. I think that's the kind of person you are. You're just a positive kind of guy.
Yeah. Maybe I'm too giving. Well, don't prove me wrong, Steve. Don't shatter my faith in humanity, all right? Anyway, thank you guys for joining us here in another episode of the PotsCast. If you want to get some more content from us, remember all the ways that I said you could at the top. We're on YouTube. We are wherever you get your podcasts every Monday. We are on Twitch every Thursday, except for this one because I fucked us up. And we'll be back next week to stream some more games, so go check that out. And you can also head over to patreon.com/LootPots, where for just $1, you can keep the conversation rolling with this week's After Dark, where Steve and I talked about a litany of things, and none of them were depressing this week. So that's pretty good. Check it out. All right. So thank you guys for joining us here in another episode of the PotsCast. We will catch you next week. Take it easy.